This was once the center of an ancient 500-mile network of hand-dug canals in the basin of the Salt and Gila rivers. Welcome to the very first episode of Relic Roads. I'm Rich, and today we're exploring the remnants left behind from a civilization that thrived in the desert over 1,000 years ago. I'm walking along the banks of one of the old canals right now. The Hohokam people engineered this. They designed the gradients and the turns perfectly to keep the water moving at a steady pace without eroding the banks. This canal used to be bigger too, before the desert storms and seasonal floods worked it over for hundreds of years. It's amazing there's anything left at all, really. And there were other canals that were much deeper and wider than this one too. We're headed straight towards one of them now. We're currently at a central gate system that connected a main canal to several smaller canals in part of this large ancient network. And just on the other side of this fence, we should see that much bigger canal that we're looking for. There it is. And if that looks like a modern canal, that's because it is. The modern Salt River Project is built right on top of these ancient canals. When early American settlers found these canals in the 1860s, they dug them out and reused them for plumbing and irrigation systems, creating the foundation for the town that would eventually become Phoenix, Arizona. Some of these canals are as old as 2,000 years old. And at its height, there was a community of upwards of 50,000 people living here, managing them. But by the time they were discovered, they had been abandoned for over 400 years. This is one of the few canals left that has not been repurposed into a modern canal or buried, either by centuries of flooding or by sprawling development. There were dwellings surrounding this area too, but they've experienced the same fate. The people who managed these canals didn't just live in the flats. To understand them and their story, we've got to follow the water into the mountains. The place we're headed to is at the top of that highest point you see straight ahead there. You can see some water just off to the left there. That's pretty common. Anytime you find history of people, it's going to be where there is history of water. There's that mountain again, straight ahead at the top. That is where we are going. We're going to be on this road for a while, and then as soon as we sort of get to the back side of the hill on the left side there, we're going to follow the ridge line all the way up to the top of the mountain there. At the top, there's supposed to be like an old living area and fort with some walls. We're getting about to the area where we should be turning in. And there are no trails here, not really, so we're going to be walking through the bushes today.
The thing that I want to watch out for are rattlesnakes. They could be anywhere in here. It's about mid-February. They're usually not out quite this early, but it's been pretty warm around here, so they're likely out and about. We'll just keep an eye out for them as we go.
There's the road we hiked in on. And I think that's about where we entered into all the thick.
All right, well, these are some of the first structures we're coming across. Not really structures, just some formations of rocks in piles here. But we are not really to the top yet. So we got more to explore. Let's head on up there.
Okay, it looks like this is it. It looks like a rock wall in the back there. This kind of looks like a whole little area, maybe a room at one point a long, long time ago. I think I see another wall over here. This one's not standing upright quite as well as the other one, but it's pretty big. It's really wide, a lot of big rocks. Just looks like it's maybe fallen down a little bit over time. There's just this one little entryway in here, and then another big wall over to the right. And this wall looks a little more well preserved. You can tell these rocks have been here in this position for a long time because of all that lichen buildup, that green stuff you see building up on the north side of the rocks there. Look at this wall. The view down in there into the valley. See all the other mountains. It looks like this wall goes around the whole thing up here. But let's go check out the area that we entered through, because it looked like there were some other walls that made out like little building structures, or maybe some rooms or something like that over here. Here we go. Look at this. We've got a circular structure, and then these other walls coming off, making like some little entryways there or something. I can't really tell what those other walls are supposed to be. Anyone watching the video, let me know in the comments if you're familiar with these structures, the shapes of them, what they were used for, why we have different shapes up here. Right now we're going into more of a square-shaped structure, whereas the last one was circular with those interesting walls coming out. We're heading over to the other side of the mountain here. And you can see the walls start right all over again. Looks like history everywhere. Everywhere you look. Just stuff all over the ground, walls everywhere. This place is unbelievable. Looks like another room or building of some sort here. You know, at one point these would have all had roofs to them. But of course, with time, the roofs are always the first thing to go. They're usually made of wooden sticks. This area, just outside the valley here, is at sort of a cultural crossroads where the Hohokam people lived. But just a little further upriver is where you find the history of the Salado people. They lived in some hilltop dwellings like this, but mostly lived in cliffside dwellings that were in deep valleys, very difficult to reach. This wasn't too challenging for me to hike up here. And here's that wall as it continues around the entire other side. You can see some areas that used to look like structures again. That big hill you see in the middle of the screen there is where, that's basically what we were looking at as we hiked up here. That's why we couldn't really see this flat area, but to tell you the truth, I've seen this hill from pretty much any angle, and you can't tell that there's this big, flat area up here. It's just perfect. This wall that surrounds the whole place is so cool. And it really makes you wonder, was this an area that they lived or just some sort of a defense fortress? Did they use this to look for animals and just watch people? Or could there have been a battle that took place here one day? It's believed that at some point, this area started to become increasingly more arid, less resourceful, more prone to droughts and floods. To survive over time, the Hohokam adapted and migrated in a few different directions. Some moved further south into the Sonoran Desert, eventually becoming the Tohono O'odham. Many stayed right here in the main Salt and Gila River valleys. These are the ancestors of today's Akmil O'odham. Meanwhile, others shifted to slightly higher grounds near the Verde and Agua Fria rivers, or pushed even further into the eastern and northern highlands, eventually blending with other cultures. Time to start the hike back down before we lose sunlight. I'm Rich, and this is Relic Roads. We'll see you back next week for another one.